I think it's a team sport on the business side. I think it's a team sport or professional side. I think it's a team sport on the family side as well.
I agree. That makes sense.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leader Lab. This is Leadership Shorts. Quick thoughts to help you level up your leadership. We're laughing because we have a good time. My name is Chad Wright. I'm the founder of Forward Partners, and this is my partner in podcasting, Emily Grace Deal. If you ever notice when we start these, if I'm like really smiling, it's because we were joking about something right before, and then we just jumped into it.
Yeah, you try to make me laugh right before we start, and then you're like, now be serious. Not
now
really.
Be serious. It's the best opening ever.
Yes.
Poor John has been recording this episode for like 15 minutes now as we joke around.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's jump into this. So what are we doing today?
Well, today we have a question.
Okay.
I feel like I'm doing everything I can to keep from burning out, but I'm getting no support from my company and I'm not sure what to do.
It's, we talk all the time about how burnout is an internal fight, right? There are external factors. But burnout is really, can we choose to do the basic things necessary to keep from burning out?
Right.
And it is an internal fight, but it's also a team sport at the same time. It's this weird, it's two-sided, right?
Right.
There are things organizations can do to support you in that fight against burnout. And it's understanding it's both. And really what the organization can provide is frameworks. And how are we going to function? Agreements around what are we going to agree to help us defeat burnout? And I don't know that a lot of organizations have this discussion, and then they end up with a lot of burned out people. And what I've discovered over years now doing this work is we put really bad expectations on ourselves.
Yeah.
Like some of it's the organization puts them on us, but more often than not, we're doing it. And ultimately when that happens, bad things are going to happen for us.
Yeah.
And so we have to have agreements as an organization to kind of give people permission. Say, hey, we're in this fight with you. We don't
to
want
show that
you to
support.
burn out. Yeah, absolutely. And so we're always saying, okay, what are those agreements we need to make? And often it's just basic questions, right? We've got some questions here. Let's dive into these because I really want to understand how each one of these kind of shapes how people can fight burnout.
Sure, that makes sense. So the first one is, how will people disconnect when away?
This one's interesting because
this one's hard.
It's really hard because we had just assumed, well, people know how to vacation. They've got the time, that's on them. But really defining as an organization, how are we going to value disconnection? So if you're on vacation, is it okay for me to email you? Is it okay for me to text you and ask questions? Is it like really an organization defining that and saying, hey, they're going to disappear. And short of X, Y, and Z reasons, you do not reach out to them.
Right.
That's a valuable agreement.
Right. I think it's really like, because we've talked to some people and it's like, well, I don't want to come back and have a ton of emails when I get back.
Yep.
Okay, we get that.
Yep.
And how is it even humanly possible? Has definitely been thrown at us a few times.
Yes.
But I think it really comes down to like figuring out what works for you and knowing that even if you don't open the email, if you still get it and have to swipe to ignore it, it's in your brain. You're thinking about it.
You are.
And you haven't completely disconnected.
Yeah.
And there is a world in which we can actually do that.
Everyone can. Like we talk with leaders at the highest levels of these organizations. People, police chiefs we talk with, where some of their job is literally life and death.
Right.
There is still an ability for them to disconnect. But I think it's understanding that we have to give those frameworks because without it, we're going to put an expectation on ourselves that we're always connected.
Right.
So
if
where
you're,
our value is.
as a team, thinking about how that looks and how that works for individuals and having the discussion in general, then people know, I can do this. I have their support to do this. Like we all want this to happen.
Yes. I think that is the vital discussion to have because we assume people just have this figured out and we don't. It's like you said at the very beginning, it's really hard to do this well.
Yes.
What's another question that we kind of want to create agreements around?
What are expectations for return communication?
So what we mean by this question is, let's say you do get an email at 10 o'clock at night. Let's say you got a leader who this was the moment they had to bang out that email and send it out.
Oh, yeah.
Are you supposed to return it at 10:01? Like, are you supposed to reply, or is the expectation the next day is okay? And we talk about this all the time. Again, there's this pressure we put on ourselves to say, well, I got to return back immediately. Like I'm showing my value. I'm showing I'm dedicated and engaged.
Right. They're going to think I don't care if I don't immediately respond.
Exactly. And yet, if I had to send you an email at 10 o'clock at night, my hope would be to get a response the next morning. But if we haven't defined that, you're more likely to default to, I got to respond right now.
Or like, it could be something that you were just like, I want to get this out of my brain. I don't need this for till Wednesday or whatever day, like 2 days from now.
Yeah. It just occurred to me and I need to get it out so I don't forget it. Right.
Right. Those and then if I'm panicking and I'm like, he needs it right now, then like there's no communication or clarity there.
What's really funny is that happened literally yesterday. I was going to be in a coaching meeting with a group for like 4 or 5 hours, right? It was going to be a while. And I called other Emily on our team just to ask her a question about something completely unrelated, right? And she wasn't by her phone. And it was fine because it wasn't important. It didn't matter. Like, we'll talk about it later.
Yes, she came back and the phone was sitting there. Did you see when Chad called?
Exactly. And so she calls me as I'm pulling into the dealership. And she's like, oh my gosh, I was afraid you needed something for the meeting and I didn't have it for you. And
we had a shared moment of panic. And then we were both like, it's probably fine.
It was. And what's funny is we never function at a level where we're like, I need this right now. Like, occasionally, I guess we've had that happen. It's very rare.
Right.
And often it is, this would be nice to have right now. If we don't have it, that's okay. And so even when we do that well, there's still this instant internal panic, right? So I think we have to acknowledge that exists and put those agreements in place to say, hey, I'm not expecting an immediate return. You get back to me when you have time. If it's an emergency, I'll text you and say 911, like, here's the emergency, right? Exactly. So I think we have to keep that in mind. And we've got some more questions, but these are really just an idea of things that need to be thought of as an organization. And the last thing I would leave people with is, this is also true of families. So while an organization needs to create frameworks to help someone defeat burnout, families need to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think it's really just thinking through things that seem obvious or like you think, oh, we already understand.
Yes.
You can just talk about it. Just talk about what that time looks like. Talk about how things are going to work. Those are boundaries. Those are helpful.
A really good example of this, I think, is like when your kids start to grow up and get into sports. There's pressure to say, okay, you're in these sports. You can be in all the sports you want. So you got kids playing 10 different sports, right? If that works for your family, great. I don't know anybody that has that kind of time, right? And so if you're burning out on the family side because we're overcommitting because we never created agreements, so we're just running on our internal fear and our internal pressure of like, I've got to be super parent, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that happens so early and so fast with families. You just look up a decade later and you've been doing this, but it has not been good for the family. So I think having these same discussions about, hey, as a team, as a family, we need to defeat burnout. What are some agreements we need to make to allow that to happen?
Right. Let's put some limits or put some discussion into how this works.
Yes. So I think it's a team sport on the business side. I think it's a team sport or professional side. I think it's a team sport on the family side as well.
I agree. That makes sense.
I love this. I love this question. Whoever brought this to us is super helpful. All right, leaders, let's talk next steps. What are some areas that you as an organization need to create agreements to allow your people to defeat burnout? How do we want to honor disconnection? What do we want to talk about communication? And there's probably 1,000 other questions you can identify that you go, here's a pain point. What do we need to create? And on the family side, are there agreements your family needs to make about how you're going to function and operate to allow you to defeat burnout? Because it is both an individual fight, like this is an element of we're fighting our own fear, we're fighting our own expectations. And also then it's the team sport of, is the team creating frameworks to help help find success in this fight? That's what we're after. All right. If people want to send us more questions just like this, where do they send it?
lab@forwardpartners.net.
lab@forwardpartners.net. If they want to find us online, we are putting out social media content all over the place. Where do they find us?
@ForwardPartner.
@ForwardPartner on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Emily, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
John, thank you for producing. And thank y'all for watching and sharing this with fellow leaders. We will see you next time right here in the Leader Lab for Leadership Shorts.